In this video, we'll begin over the history of an old priest talent called Void Tendrils, one of the most powerful roots ever added to the game. Originally, this ability was added to priests in Mists of Pandaria, and was available in the first row alongside a couple other CC-like abilities in the first iteration of the new talent roles that we still have to this day. And what they did was, on a 30-second cooldown, it would root all nearby targets for around 20 seconds. But what was special about these roots was they did not break on damage like normal roots, could not be dispelled, and instead you actually had to kill the Void Tendrils that spawned in order to free yourself. You see, with normal roots, like with the Druid ability roots or the Mage's Frost Nova, they have a damage threshold, where they break after a certain amount of damage is done to the target. And over the course of WoW, both of these abilities have had some kinds of interactions that have increased or lowered the damage threshold. But basically, they probably won't break from a couple of dots ticking, and they're almost guaranteed to break after getting hit by a normal ability or two. They were originally balanced around this, that way ranged characters couldn't just use roots on melee characters to completely remove them from a fight, and have an extra form of hard CC that doesn't really affect ranged players. So if roots didn't break on damage, you could just root a warrior, move 10 feet away from them, and then attack them with near impunity, as they wouldn't really be able to do any kind of reasonable damage back to you at range. And this is kind of what Void Tendrils was going for. Void Tendrils would not break on damage, so if you use them on a warrior and then walk 10 feet away, you could just attack them for the full duration of the Void Tendrils without worry of them ever breaking. However, the warrior would then have to attack the Void Tendrils if they wanted to free themselves, which acted as an excellent form of crowd control, since it forced the control target to have to target something else in the middle of PvP, while also being attacked from range by everything else. You see, swapping targets in PvP is kind of difficult for the average player, and it really separates the higher skilled players who are able to change targets quickly. So sure, there was an out to the Void Tendrils by attacking them, but having to change targets in the middle of a high stress situation like an arena match added an extra layer of difficulty to dealing with them, especially while you're being attacked and probably crowd controlled by other things while you're trying to DPS the Void Tendrils. It was just a really strong form of CC, which wasn't really meant to be as strong as it ended up being. But since Void Tendrils were added to the game in Mists of Pandaria, and this is the expansion in which crowd control was at its peak, where basically everyone had really broken crowd control abilities, it kind of flew under the radar as not even the strongest thing in that expansion. Although, in the very next expansion of Warlords of Draenor, Blizzard took a hard turn on that philosophy, and nerfed all previously broken CCs to the ground, including Void Tendrils. What they did to Void Tendrils was a threefold nerf. First off, you still need to DPS down the Tendril in order to break the CC, but if the target took damage while in the Void Tendril, then the damage would be applied to the roots as well, essentially adding a damage threshold to the Tendrils like pretty much all other roots. They also lowered the health of the roots in half, and moved the location of the roots to a higher talent tier so they weren't as easy to pick up. And in this new version, the roots were kind of bad, so they went in and increased the health of the roots by about 30%, and then in Legion, the next expansion, they just removed the roots from the game with the priest redesigns. So while Void Tendrils were strong in their original form, they were also a great case study of why roots break on damage, and also not creating obstacles that players need to attack down in order to free themselves from a crowd control, because it just adds an extra layer of difficulty to non-pro players. Alright, and that's the video. Do you know of any other abilities or talents I should make a history video of next? If so, I'd love to hear about them down in the comments. And also, did you know only 37.1% of people who watch these videos are actually subscribed to the channel?